Participants, a very good afternoon to all of you, and welcome to the second session of today's program. For this program, we have Dr. M.M. Goyal ji, Professor M.M. Goyal ji with us. आप सब लोग जानते हैं जैसा कि जो प्रोफेसर गोयल हैं वो हमारे न्यूरोनॉमिक स्कूल ऑफ थॉट्स के फाउंडर हैं. आपने एक कॉन्सेप्ट इवॉल्व किया है विच इज बेस्ड ऑन द गीता's कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ कर्मा थ्योरी. और जिस तरह से जो सार हम जैसे गीता का सार हम 8 लाइनों में बोलते हैं ना, तो इस तरह से सर ने एजुकेशन के अंदर गीता का सार निकालते हुए इसको जो है वो डेवलप किया है इस थीम को. और सर क्योंकि इकोनॉमिक्स से आते हैं तो इन्होंने उस थॉट को अपने उसमें लगाया है. आज जिस टॉपिक के ऊपर सर बात करेंगे वो है नीडो गवर्नेंस इन इंस्टीट्यूशनल मैनेजमेंट, कॉल फॉर स्पिरिचुअल इंटेलिजेंस इन एकेडमिक लीडरशिप. इसके ऊपर सर आज बात करेंगे. एंड बिफोर ही स्टार्ट्स विद दिस सेशन एंड वी इनवाइट हिम हियर, let me introduce you all with Professor M.M. Goyal ji. He is, just a second. आज वैसे जो हमारा थीम है वो एकेडमिक गवर्नेंस पे है. और सर जो है बहुत सारे एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव एक्सपीरियंस सर के पास है. ही इज द फॉर्मर वाइस चांसलर and professor is known as a propounder of the neuronomics school of thought and is superannuated as a professor from the Kurukshetra University after serving for 44 years in the field of teaching. He has 17 years of administrative experience where he has served as a vice chancellor of the StarX University in the Gurugram, Jagannath University, Jaipur. He was director cum vice chancellor at Rajiv Gandhi National Institute of Youth Development at Tamil Nadu, where he was appointed by the President of India. He has also served the Veer Kunwar Singh University, Ara, as a pro vice chancellor, which is a state university in Bihar. He had also served at the positions as Dean of Colleges and Social Sciences, Chairman, Department of Economics, and Department of Journalism at Kurukshetra University. He has also worked as advisor public finance in the 6th Finance State Commission in Haryana to the state government of Haryana. He is a profound researcher, guide, orator, and prolific writer, and experienced in educational governance in the universities. He is a recipient of 2 gold medals for standing first class in MPhil and in the postgraduate diploma in journalism and mass communication. He is also protagonist of Neuronomics. He has the international recognition in that, and he was the first ICCR, Indian Council of Cultural Relations chair professor in South Korea at Hongkong University of Foreign Studies, Seoul. He is bestowed upon with the honor of Ambassador for Peace by the Universal Peace Federation, adjunct professor at School of Indic Studies, Institute of Advanced Sciences in USA. He has been conferred with the Rotary Foundation Award for the International Understanding in 1983, which provided him with the opportunity to represent India in USA, UK, and Canada. He has also been in the South Korea, Sri Lanka, Australia, Norway, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Nepal for the academic exchange purposes. He is also the life member of International Film and Television Club, and he is honored with the Global Leader in the Higher Education Award in the year 2021 by the AKS Education, and is honored with the LOSD Excellence Award in the year 2023, recently which was given to him in the social category for excellence in neuronomics at the Lord's Cricket Ground, London. At the National Front, Professor M.M. Goyal is honored with Professor J.K. Mehta Academic Excellence Award 2023 for his outstanding groundbreaking research contribution to the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports, Government of India. He is also the member of the Board of Governors for the Academy of the Grassroots Studies and the Research of India since 2021 and onwards. He stands honored to act as a chairperson for the Search Cum Screening Committee of Econo 1 Evaluation for National Award of the Teachers Application 2023. This is basically a Government of India initiative where they give the awards to the teachers at the national level. A very prestigious award of the teachers. One of the distinct honor of which is given to him is involved in the research for being involved in the research is the publication of his book, that is Economics, a research journey with the Professor M.M. Goyal, which was edited by his scholar, Dr. Pradeep S. Chauhan, and was published by VK Global Publication. His area of research is economics for human development and Indian economy. He has 485 publications, including 5 books, 1 monograph, 120 research journals, 38 chapters in the edited books, 60 conference proceedings, and 230 print media articles to his credit. He has successfully guided 25 PhD scholars and 25 MPhil scholars. He has completed 2 research projects and has established his credentials in the economics journalism and development communication. He has served as the editor of Kurukshetra Research Journal of Arts and Humanities and Journal of Haryana Studies, in addition as the chief editor of Kautilya. He is on the editorial board of Finance India. He has drafted the intellectual property rights policy of Kurukshetra as nodal officer of IPR cell, and he enjoys the status of spiritual citizen with more than 270 vlogs in Times of India, which is under the speaking tree, which you will read in the Times of India. अगर आप editorial page देखें तो वहाँ पर speaking tree आता है और इनका blog भी है और इतना सारा contribution in the field of writing, academics, teaching. It's an honor for all of us, sir, to have you here, and it's always an honor to learn from you. The experience that you have and the way you share the things with all of us is tremendously different, which makes us all grow as a human, grow as a teacher, and grow as a researcher.
Thank you, Dr. Shefali, for speaking kind words about me. Am I audible?
Ji, sir.
My PPT is visible?
Yes, sir.
My PPT is visible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, in
Yes,
fact,
sir, yes,
I'm not doing it slideshow because in Google Meet, there is a problem. It doesn't move out for next. So that is why I'm keeping it like this. So anyway,
No
I'm
problem,
grateful
sir.
to BEPS Women University, Malviya Mission Teacher Training Center and its director, Dr. Shefali Nagpal, for providing me this wonderful opportunity to talk to you this afternoon. I am speaking to you from Kurukshetra. Hopefully you know Kurukshetra. Kurukshetra is known for what? Any participant? Participant, please. Kurukshetra is known for what?
Gita Gyan.
Kurukshetra is very much known that we have alumni of the Kurukshetra University, sir.
Wonderful, wonderful. In fact, the entire world knows Kurukshetra, sadly for Mahabharata, but me being a student, teacher, researcher living in Kurukshetra, I always say Kurukshetra as a place is the first ever university on the planet, because the objective of a university is to get knowledge, and the best possible knowledge has been given by Lord Krishna himself in the form of Bhagavad Gita. Let me tell you, Bhagavad Gita is a ism neutral, religion-free treatise on management, relationship management, and welfare economics. To move on the ladder of success in any walk of life, including academics, as a teacher, as a principal, as a vice chancellor, with morality, opulence, victory, and empowerment, believe that Krishna as God and Arjun as our own soul is with us. And that is called Ek Shloki Gita. If you put it in Google search engine and write down Ek Shloki Gita, you will get Yatra Yogeshwar Krishno, Yatra Partharo Dhanurdhar, Tatra Sri Vijyo Bhutarduta Nitramatramam. Meaning thereby to move on the path of morality, opulence, victory, and empowerment, we have to believe in Krishna as God and Arjun as our own soul. With this, I am coming to the topic today. academic leadership, NEDO governance, and management. I have made a little change. People talk of good governance. Good governance may be sometimes bitter in taste, and NEDO governance may be bitter in taste, but ultimately leads to healthy environment to be created in educational institution. And for that, we will find out what role we as a teacher, as a principal, as a vice chancellor to play in this. To be honest with you, we have to develop an understanding the challenges and responsibility of academic leadership in the present times when we are practically implementing National Education Policy 2020. For providing humanized teaching with endeavors of NEDO governance, the academic leadership must convert monkey mind, misuse of artificial intelligence, to monk mind, use of spiritual intelligence. Let me honestly tell you, basically, many of us are monkey mind. I have no hesitation to say that recently you might have seen one Chief Minister, Mr. Nitish Kumar of Bihar, how he changes his alliances, sometime with Laluji, sometime against Laluji, and practically I have gone to an extent of calling such type of leadership as politics of art and science of doing wrong things at a right time, and politics as art and science of making excuses, which Nitish ji do time and again. And to my mind, that is a monkey mind. And similarly, we people sometimes in education misuse of artificial intelligence. That is an example I want to give you, monkey mind. Today, the time has come when we have to implement the national education policy, and for that, we need to convert our monkey mind to monk mind using spiritual intelligence with intuition, introspection, and practically believing in soul as immortal. Sub-theme 3 of 3, academic leadership, governance, and management in National Education Policy 2020 says W2H approach: who, what, where, when, and why, to be converted into how and how much. That needs to be understood in right perspective. I'll come to this little later. And practically, when we are thinking in terms of Viksit Bharat towards 2047, it is our humble duty to understand Bharat. Bharat means, Bha means knowledge, Rat means seeker. As a knowledge seeker economy, we claim to be Vishwa Guru, and for that, we should treat it more than independent nation declared in August 1947. Today, there is another acronym of India by the political parties. I don't want to talk about that, but once I asked this question in civil services, that what is the difference between Bharat and India, most of the people wrote Bharat lives in villages and India lives in cities. But we need to understand Bharat today as knowledge seeker economy, because we are in process of implementing the national education policy for holistic education, which is required for becoming a global citizens. It is our moral duty to reread the provisions in 66-page document of National Education Policy 2020 in 27 headings. Out of that, 9 to 7 headings are for higher education. And to my mind, it is an invention. But to make innovation, we academic leaders, as teachers, as principals, as vice chancellors, have a role to play for making it innovation by its application a right perspective. At the same time, I make a statement that NEP is necessary but not sufficient for global knowledge economy, sustainable development goals, You know, Sustainable Development Goals 2030 are 17 targets, and out of that, 5 are related with quality of education. And not only that, we have to practically understand National Youth Policy 2014. I'm sorry to confess that many of us have not read National Youth Policy 2014 in tune with the National Education Policy 2020. National Youth Policy talks of deepening the democratic roots. Practically, we talk of everything: education, health, training, jobs, entrepreneurship for youth. But we forget that in National Youth Policy, there is a provision of involving youth into democracy and governance. Although we talk of democracy as a strength, but to my mind, it is a weakness also, because till today, when we are holding election after election, and you will see, even in 2024 elections, the voting rate doesn't go more than 60 to 65%, meaning thereby 30 to 35% people don't vote. And for that, we have to involve youth into democracy with the governance opportunities. All political parties have their youth wings, but sorry to say that they don't provide them proper opportunities. Even in our educational system, we have not been able to give them the opportunities to go in for students associations as is required, student council by Lindo committee recommendations. Many of the states have not allowed any kind of elections for the students. That is required to be done practically if we want to make our national education policy sufficient for the global knowledge economy and strengthening our democracy in my beloved Bharat to be made Vikshit by 2047. To create global citizens from Bharat, we need to teach the relationship between spirituality and materialism for Nido lifestyle based on Nidonomics, which is practically coming from LIC logo of India, Yogam Kshemam Mahamyam. LIC says, your welfare is our responsibility, which is practically taken from Shloka number 22 of chapter 9 of Gita. Let me tell you, I don't have a single LIC policy till today because I could not find this LIC agents to motivate me to go in for LIC policy. But the moment I understood this Yogam Kshemam Mahamyam from my Guru Gita in chapter 9 of Shloka number 22, where Lord Krishna says, Anyanya Chintanto Mayojana Priyupaste Tesham Nityabhyuktanam Yogam Kshemam Mahamyam. Meaning thereby, Lord Krishna says, if you believe me completely, absolutely, and wholeheartedly, whatever you need, that I'll give you. Whatever you have, that I'll take care of. And that is the gentleman promise of God to every one of us. And from there, I have come out with this conceptualization of Nidonomics, economics of needs, which is practically a common sense approach as ethical, non-violent, environmental friendly, and spiritual in nature. Today, we have to search the solutions, Nido solutions of all challenges and worldly problems in the present era calls for Nido education, for Nido employment, and Nido entrepreneurship. Let me honestly confess before you that till today, 50% of our graduates from our educational institutions are not employable, neither in India nor outside India. Therefore, while implementing the national education policy, when we are interested to enhance our gross enrollment ratio by 50%, it is our duty to provide them Nido education for Nido employment and Nido entrepreneurship. I am also reminded of the logo of National Service Scheme. Many of you may be the program officer. I was also a volunteer program officer, ultimately reached to the Board of Governors at the national level in National Service Scheme. I have adopted this not me but you, and that is practically gives us understanding of Nido altruism. Let me honestly tell you, we should earn more than our expenditure, not to basically misuse it, abuse it, but to help others. That gives a birth to the concept of Nido altruism. The fraternity of teachers, must become success stories to become the real heroes better than the entertainers in the film industry. I am sad to observe that we call heroes King Khan, heroines of Bollywood, but to my mind, they are merely entertainers. We have to become, as a teacher, success stories so that people are able to have documentaries on us, films on us, and we are called the real heroes of the society. And for that, we have to understand what leader constitutes. I want to ask a question to you. Leader, good if not great as doctors. If you understand this definition of doctor, who is a good doctor or a great doctor? Good doctor takes care of the disease, whereas great doctor take care of the patient. Similarly, a good teacher take care of the courses which we teach in a semester, whereas a great teacher takes care of the students, taking into account their personal problems for their employment and entrepreneurship. Therefore, as a leader, may be good, may not be great, we have to think all the fundamentals we are required to adopt for strengthening our leadership qualities to go in for NEDO governance in the institutional management at all levels, starting from school to university level. We need to be realistic, accepting the challenges we are facing today. Honestly speaking, when we talk in terms of implementing the national education policy and dreaming of gross enrollment ratio of 50% to be enhanced, I believe that we are victim of overpopulation. Many of us are careless, many of us are useless, many of us are careless, many of us are useless. How to make them careful and useful is a challenge to become realistic in implementation of the national education policy, and for that we need to become resourceful also. If you have seen the interim budget 2024-25, practically the expenditure on education has declined. Therefore, we have to learn how to generate the resources. Government of India is expecting that we have to conduct many education programs under self-financing. That calls for the academic leaders to become resourceful in the strict sense of the term. We need to be enthusiastic with endurance. We are sometimes blamed as villains of the society. We are respected as teachers only on 2 days when we celebrate National Teacher Day on September 5 and National Education Day on November 11. But we have to endure all kind of allegations which are being imposed on us, called assets only on 2 days. Rest of the 360 days, we are assets with T, meaning thereby we must develop our endurance. We have to be dynamic with dedication for the profession of teaching. Teaching is a profession. Sadly, it has become a vocation thanks to the UGC grade given in 6th Pay Commission and the 7th Pay Commission. Today, it has become a vocation. Many people have entered into the profession for earning their livelihood. If we are there in the teaching profession, we are misfit. Therefore, if we want to be dedicated teachers, we must have a passion as a professional in the teaching profession and even as a academic leadership. We have to have adaptable attitude and we should be accountable. Let me honestly tell you, recently on January 22, when everybody was talking of worshipping Ram, Ayodhya, and all of us accept Ram as God. But I came out with a blog saying Ram as R for responsibility, A for accountability, M for morality. Ram is required to be understood under the banner Indian knowledge system to be adopted by academic leaders for providing NEDO governance with responsibility, accountability, and morality in the institutional management of our educational institutions. And for that, we must go in for excellence with enthusiasm, and we should be loyal to the nation. Although we are talking of globalization as internationalization of Indianization, but nationalism needs to be understood analyzed, interpreted, and adopted in right perspective. For becoming a great academic leader, we must think of holistic education for holistic development of our students. That calls for 360-degree, 4-quadrant of holistic development required by our students as well as our teachers. That calls for spirituality, which is related with our soul. Science of soul is called spirituality. Physical, our physical body, which we have taken birth, is basically required to be developed. Physical development is essentially required because a sound mind lives in a sound body. Mental level development is required. Mind sometimes takes us to many stupid things. Therefore, mental level development needs to be developed in the minds of every youth of our country to be a nationalist, to play the role as a global citizen. And for that, we must enhance our emotional quotient also, meaning thereby holistic development of individuals as a 360-degree in 4-quadrant has to be understood, analyzed, interpreted, and adopted by us as academic leaders in the classroom, outside the classroom, in the college, in the university, as teacher, as principal, and as our vice chancellor. To my mind, as academic leader, when we think in terms of need of governance for institutional management, this question should ponder our mind. We have to do what and what not, why not, when not, where not, for whom. If I try to explain all these, I can take 2 hours. Practically, we have to work without worries. Let me tell you, the problems, challenges will be there. As I told to you, overpopulation, many are careless and useless. In that scenario, we have to think in terms of understanding the modern educational paradigm, which is national education policy. I used to call it invention. To make it innovation, we have to play the role as a teacher in our education system. And for that, I have been conceiving society as all minus I. I myself is not society, but around me is society. Today, the participants of this MMTC course is my society. Whatever I have to do it for the sake of my society today, the fraternity of teachers, to understand what academic leadership we have to give as a teacher, as a principal, as a vice chancellor. And for that, we have to understand all people around us as actors. There are 4 categories of people around us: consumers as students, producers as educational institutions, which has become an industry today, sadly. Everybody is poking its nose at every level of education. Even central government is poking its nose at school level education, talking of central universities. Therefore, we have to think in terms of all these producers in both public sector and private sector, and we have to go in for practically a PPP model in right perspective. I like to explain it later. Distributors are practically the teachers, the trainers, skill development programs we are going, and many of us have become traders also. People have started distributing degrees. I'm sorry to confess before you, many of the private universities are distributing degrees. In that scenario, we have to think of academic leaders for need of governance. In this scheme of thought, let me tell you, student is our hero. Whatever we should do it for the sake of student. As student is interested in educational product, I'm worried about it. We have an exit policy. After 1 year, we are going to give 1 year certificate, and then after 2 years, we are going to diploma, and then after 3-year degree. And that educational product should be sufficient even after getting a certificate course. One is able to get employment or able to go in for entrepreneurship, then only it is useful. Otherwise, we are going to be treated as villain. As I told to you, in between the student and educational product is we, the teachers, who are called villain. I'm calling humbly, but people are calling us assets without T. Therefore, it is our duty to go in for introspection of our role as a hero. We can become great teachers like Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya, so that people respect us, give us honor which we deserve, and we become the real heroes of the society and not the entertainers of Bollywood and Hollywood. I have gone in for understanding what is the rationale of academic leadership and governance. At one point of time, I was a victim, not getting promotions at the right time, and that is the result of bad governance. Still, many of the fraternity of teachers are not able to get the due. They are not able to get the projects, research projects. On the one hand, they are asked to go in for increasing their API score. They need to conduct research for themselves, research guide also, but they are not being given the opportunity. And that is an example of becoming victim of bad governance. At all levels, we are ineffective and inept. Many times we think in terms of implementing many things. Still today, we are not able to provide teachers to many of the institutions. That so says that we need proper governance, governance in our educational institutions. And let me tell you, the politicians, both in power and opposition, are insensitive and callous. They don't understand the reality. They don't understand the problems of the teacher. They don't understand the problems of connectivity. Even if for the online education, electricity is a big problem in many places. Internet connectivity is a problem. Therefore, when we think in terms of providing higher education to all the educational institutions under the national education policy, we have to talk to them openly that you have to support us. We have to be basically provided the basic infrastructure required for that. Mismanagement of the budget and financial resources at all levels of the government. I wish to draw your kind attention to the fact that we pay education cess. May I ask the participants where we use education cess? Any participant? Education cess is to be used properly for development of National Education Fund and should be made available for implementing the National Education Policy. Anybody who can respond to my question? Where do we use education cess? Let me tell you, education cess is underutilized. Any participant? Are you listening me?
Yes,
Hello?
sir. Education cess can be used to increase the expenditure of education, like in NEP. We are.
But do you know where it is used now?
It is underutilized, sir. We are spending only 2% of the GDP. Our target is 6%, sir. That can be utilized over there, sir.
But I'm just asking you a question. Do you know where education cess is being used presently?
No, sir. I do not precisely know.
Only for IIMs and IITs, sadly. And that IIMs and IITs are producing people who are not going to stay in India. They always go out. Therefore, I don't consider it's a proper utilization of the education cess most of the income taxpayers are paying. Therefore, I have a great pain in saying that education cess, which we pay as income taxpayers, is to be properly utilized. It can be created as a national education fund and to be utilized for implementing the national education policy at all levels. It should be available even to private institutions for many of the activities to be conducted, whether they are the faculty development programs or the national seminars or the national conferences. Therefore, this is the mismanagement of resources taking place in my beloved country. And there are cumbersome procedures of doing business of any kind, for example, of bad governance. You have to think in terms of implementing the Skill India program, startup program, and Make in India program. You will find that although we claim that ease of doing business has been done, but many of the things are difficult to be done properly. So in that scenario, we have to understand the issues in NEDO governance. NEDO governance means in a democracy, it should be participative. All stakeholders should be participating. All of you are to talk in terms of IQAC, Internal Quality Assurance Cell, Have you constituted it as per the mandate of NAC? Many people are just putting the names of their 4 or 5 teachers, and they are doing maximum 7 teachers per criteria and doing that. No, it requires participation of the students, alumni, and other stakeholders of the city. Even the local government can be involved into that. We have to have a rule of law, transparency, responsiveness, consensus-oriented, equity, inclusiveness, effectiveness, efficiency, and accountability. These are the various indicators which have to be understood, analyzed, interpreted in case we want to play the role of academic leaders in need of governance of the institutional management for implementing the national education policy. When we talk in terms of the functions of management, manage men, manage women, and that calls for having the skills in planning, organizing, supervision, transparency, communication, administration, responsiveness, decision making. I have come out with the word postcard. When I used to teach my MBA students, that time I coined this term postcard. Postcard is a mode of communication which I consider most effective, sacred, secret, and quickest mode of communication. You can try to post one postcard from one place to another. You will find that it reaches third day. The quickest mode of communication, because after the terrorism, Government of India has given the instructions to Post and Telegraph Department to censor 50% of the dark, and they consider postcard as an open secret. There is no question of delaying reading it, and that is why I call it open secret and quickest mode of communication. Sacred also, even in the present era when we are using WhatsApp, other social media for sending invitation cards, but that pili haldi wali chithi abhi bhi postcard pe jati hai. Meaning thereby, postcard is a sacred, secret, quickest mode of communication, gives us 8 alphabets of all the skills required in management, planning, organizing, supervision, transparency, communication, administration, responsiveness, and decision making. That we have to understand in right perspective. Academic leaders must learn entrepreneurial skills also. As I was referring to you, that Niti Aayog has come out with many things for the educational institutions, in the sense that self-financing programs, that calls for risk-taking. Until or unless we know how to take risk, we cannot become an entrepreneur. If you think of starting a new program, there is a risk as entrepreneurial skills among the academic leaders today, even as a teacher, even as a principal, even as a vice chancellor. There was a time when we were talking of profit. Then came sales. But today, it is the customer goodwill practically we have to go in for. And for that, we have to become innovative in the strict sense of the term. Which courses, which educational product we have to give, so that after 1 year, if one gets the certificate course, he is able to get a vocation, able to earn livelihood, earn to get bread and butter. That innovativeness we need in academic leaders and for need of governance in the institutional management. I was referring to that public-private partnership model can ensure good governance. I have been asking the Government of India to practically understand the problems of private sector. Private people have gone in for establishing good universities. They have created a lot of infrastructure, but sadly, they don't retain manpower, even the vice chancellors, what to talk of the teachers and the coaches. Let me give you an example. They have configured wonderful stadiums, playgrounds, but they don't recruit coaches. Therefore, if we want to implement the national education policy, for that, the infrastructure of the private sector can be better utilized, even in sports, by giving coaches by the Sports Authority of India, and that can become the best possible example of public-private of unemployment, underemployment takes place because of mismatch in the demand and supply. There was a time when in entire Haryana seats for engineering graduates, many of them are not able to get employment. Therefore, when we talk in terms of NEDO education, that should increase the return on training investment we are giving. I am afraid that this exit policy after 1 year, 2 year may not succeed without enhancing the return on training investment for NEDO employment and NEDO entrepreneurship for our youth. To make NEP sufficient, educators need educational ecosystem with skills as real education. We have to promote 3P and 3H program, I call it real education, proper, productive and practical use of hands, head and heart. Without this, we are going to miserably fail. We must learn the etiquettes of conducting classes online and offline with commitment for experiential learning, NEDO technology favorable for life. Honestly speaking, we have gone for NEP in online mode, offline mode. UGC has a mandate that 40% program should be on online and 60% offline. Honestly speaking, as a teacher, I believe there is no substitute of classroom teaching. But ultimately, when we think in terms of not able to supply the teachers, and that calls for distributing even the course curriculum between online and offline. Which course can be left to online? Which can be taught offline? This is a big problem, implementation problem for implementing the National Education Policy 2020. And we should accept this challenge and come out with those things, self-learning things, which can be given online, with which we can tell simply that these are the courses available to you. These are available in with even Swami Gulanand Maharaj. So go in for understanding yourself. And that kind of thing can be taught online. But ultimately, offline classroom teaching is the solution for giving better education, for making experimental learning in all aspects. Education without ethics is like eyes without sight. And justify ethical values in skilled workforce to become jack of all and bust of all. When we talk in terms of national education policy for holistic education, developing all-round personality of the students, that is nothing but jack of all, must of all. There was a time when we used to have an adage, jack of all, must of none. That was in the 50s after independence, when we were calling our bureaucrats, IAS people as jack of all, must of none. Then it was replaced by jack of all, master of one. That was the specialization era. And that was also over when we faced global financial crisis during 2008. After that, we have been talking of jack of all, master of all, meaning thereby generalized kind of education, universal kind of education with which one can survive, exist and excel, even if at a lower level they are able to earn their livelihood. And that calls for jack of all, master of all in our educational programs. Challenges: overpopulation, careless, careless, useless, to be converted into careful and useless. Balancing of demand and supply with flexible curriculum is the need of the day. We have to go in for understanding our research on education. When we were talking of BC earlier, we were talking of before Christ. But now we have to think in terms of making any analysis of any area for the students before COVID, during COVID, and after COVID, for drawing policy implications of research, which should not be simply based on t-value significance at 95% level. It must have basically the connections between various parameters we use in our research. We have to have innovative ideas for enhancing the capabilities, capacities, and competencies, but three-tier government should not poke its nose at every level of education. I believe the work between three government in the federal economy can be divided. Local government can be given the responsibility of primary education. Secondary level education should be the responsibility of the central government, and they should not poke its nose even in higher education. And I believe higher education should be left to the state universities to be done through public and private sector. I may be wrong, but there is need of a proper distribution of work of education in various segments of the government in the federal economy. We have to accept the challenges of competition with spiritual training based on Gita and Anugita for enlightened citizenship. We have to make global citizens, which is the objective of national education policy when we think in terms of Indian knowledge system with RAM for holistic education, for holistic development, to make global citizens. Be ready for all challenges by becoming street smart and simple. Leadership at all level, in the classroom, off the classroom, in the college, in the university, calls us to become street smart. Street smart is a person who understands environment, as we have understood during lockdown COVID era. The environment was that we cannot go out of home, we cannot go to temple. Therefore, we have understood what environment is. Similarly, in the present circumstances, we as teachers have to basically implement national education policy. There is no excuse for saying that it is difficult to implement it. And for that, we have to think in terms of leadership in the classroom, in the college, in the university, by becoming transparent. For transparency, there was a time when we were talking of RTI, but today artificial intelligence is in play. And we are monkey mind. We are practically misusing artificial intelligence. Uses are fine, but abuses, cybercrime. Even 3 days back, my Facebook account was hacked by somebody and started sending requests to many of my friends asking for money. Therefore, misuse of artificial intelligence is in play. For that, we have to be alert, aware, and awake. And not only that, we have to become monk mind by understanding spiritual intelligence with understanding soul as basically immortal. Without this, we cannot think of bringing transparency in our behavior and conduct. And that calls for becoming responsiveness also. We have to do quickly things. Like when I was getting a call from a friend that somebody is asking money on your behalf, probably he has hacked your account, I immediately asked somebody what to do. I was told that you should contact cybercrime department. And I asked the procedure 1930. There I called and then gone in for making a complaint. Sorry to say, it has not been attended. Even today, I could not get a call from the cybercrime department till today. Therefore, we need to be responsive. We have to take quick decisions. And for that, we have to learn something from the best practices available around the world. And that calls for understanding other cultures like South Korea. You know, South Korea celebrates Independence Day with us on 15th of August. And they are having only 5 crore population. They work only for 5 months because 7 months there is no snow everywhere. They are not able to work. And they have a culture called Pali Pali. Pali Pali means hurry up and be quick. That culture we have to learn practically in implementing the national education policy to give academic leadership, because delaying things unnecessarily is not going to solve the problem. We need to become responsive. We have to adopt 24-hour, 7 days model to do things. Certain things can be done quickly even today. Therefore, 24 hours is sufficient. Therefore, we need to become action-oriented, result-oriented, and we should not waste our resources in the name of target-oriented approach of wasting resources on the 31st March, which has become a ritual day in our financial year, which starts on April 1st. The financial year needs to be changed. If not changed, we need to become action-oriented and result-oriented in spending the money. You might have seen, I was telling to you that the educational expenditure has been declined by the finance minister, although we are aspiring to be a developed nation, and for that, education can play a great role. National education policy has a responsibility towards achieving the role of Viksit Bharat towards 2047, and that calls for our action-oriented approach with morality. Morality means ethics. Although there is a difference between morality and ethics. Certain things can be moral for you, may be immoral for me. Certain things can be moral, immoral for me, maybe moral for you. But ethics are universal. And that calls for understanding the difference between morality and ethics. I was telling to you, ethics in education is more important than education itself. As I told to you, education without ethics is like eyes without sight. Similarly, when I talk in terms of financing of education, let me honestly tell you, we need to go in for NEDO financing, which comes under the domain of NEDonomics, which is nothing but Arth with Dharm. We talk of Shubh Labh. We must know we have to pay taxes. Only the income taxpayers pay the taxes, pay education cess, but that money is underutilized. And that calls for the introspection of the government of India to make room for allocating the resources to the state governments from the National Education Fund to be created by this education cess. Not only that, we need to become simple. Mahatma Gandhi always used to say simple living and high thinking, but I always say simple living and no thinking. No thinking does not mean that we should not think. We should think of those things which are in our control, and we should not think those things which are not in our control. And that is the message of my Guru also, Gita. Gita says, you have a right on your actions, on your deeds, but living with others, self-awareness, self-consciousness, social skills, and empathy, more than sympathy, we required for the stakeholders who are requiring education product to be given so that if they exit after 1 year, they are able to get placement. They are able to get entrepreneurship. Without this, we are not able to succeed in implementation of national education policy, and we, the academic leaders, will be blamed. Therefore, we have to strengthen our emotional quotient. Love oneself attitude is required. I'm not going to get a certificate from you if I'm a good orator. I understand the issues of education sector, and I'm basically belonging from the family of teachers for 4 generations, and I love myself as a soul. And that attitude is required, which we promoted practically during the lockdown era. Because when people were dying, it was very difficult to persuade them to accept the realities. That time, we used to tell them, soul is immortal, death rate is 0. Because as soul, death rate is 0, but as a physical body, death rate is 100%. Everybody should die. Therefore, why to have a fear? Fear to me is false evidences appearing real. And that calls for health culture also, NEDO health. And that calls for physical development, because a sound mind lives in a sound body. Today, we have to think in terms of the holistic development of the people with physical development. And that calls for going in for meditation, yoga, and understand yoga as summation. Summation of what? One soul added to God becomes one. I call it spiritual mathematics. 1 + 1 = 1. Mental level development is required, because sometimes we blame others. We blame politicians. We blame bureaucrats. Students blame teachers. Teachers blame students. We have to change this attitude of blame game and war of words. We have to change our looks, actions, and words to make it love the land. And then only we can think of that mental level development, which is required for implementation of national education policy in right perspective to make personalities of the youth to become global citizens. I have an intuition that India is going to emerge as a world leader. Viksit Bharat, not in terms of that indicators which government is promoting in terms of 30 trillion economy, having 18,000 per capita income. But I believe that it is the strength of spirituality, the science of soul, where the rate of progress is faster than the rate of progress in materialism. I believe we are going to be a developed nation. We are going to be a global leader, and nobody can stop we are becoming Vish Guru. And that calls for becoming Guru of the self. Guru of the self means we must understand soul, who am I, then practically we can think of becoming an academic leader required for NEDO governance. And spiritual quotient development is the name of the game, which is related with our soul. IQ is related with our head, brain. EQ is related with your heart. Spiritual quotient is related with your soul. If you understand spiritual intelligence and become a monk mind from monkey mind, and you become street smart and simple, nobody can stop to make you good teacher, academic leader in the classroom, outside the classroom, in the college, as principal, in the university as a teacher. Therefore, we have to practically understand the 5 pillars of good NEDO governance. We need reforms. We can call National Education Policy 2020 as a reform, but still there is a scope of how to go in for implementing it in a phased manner, how to go in for making reforms in the recruitment. What should be the criteria of recruiting people in private sector? Private sector people, they don't pay proper wages, and there is inequalities of wages, inequalities of salaries among the teachers in the public sector and private sector. That calls for reform. Empowerment of the stakeholders. We have to empower even the vice chancellors, who are just sometimes the rubber stamps. They are not able to play the role they are expected to do. Similarly, teachers are not able to do justice with many things, and they are blamed by the students. Therefore, we have to stop this blame, and our stakeholders should be empowered at all levels, practically implementing the national education policy. We have to have speedy and efficient justice system. As you know, many of us are victim of slow procedures of even getting promotions. Therefore, our judicial system should be improved. Instruments of accountability have to be adopted with responsibility and morality, which I call RAM. RAM means responsibility, accountability, and morality to be worshipped, not simply worshipping Ram, but take it as RAM, responsibility, accountability, and morality, and that calls for implementing the best practices around the world. Here is a REACH model which I have developed to go in for Viksit Bharat. That calls for reading Gita and Anugita to recall self as soul for NEDO governance. Empower with enlightenment as academicians. Altruistic approach of NSS logo, not me but you, have to be understood. We need commitment for Bharat to be made Viksit, and that calls for hold on needs, adopt NEDonomics in right perspectives as economics of needs, NEDO consumption, NEDO saving, NEDO investment, and NEDO distribution, NEDO production, NEDO trade. And that calls for basically the 360-degree holistic model of 4 quadrant in terms of, you can start from anywhere and you will find that there's a linkage. NEDO consumption leads to NEDO saving, NEDO investment. Let me tell you, NEDO consumption is not simply minimizing, although sometimes we have to minimize consumption of certain things. We have to go in for rightful consumption, mindful consumption. And if we go for that, we go in for developing saving culture also. That was talked of by the finance minister during the budget 2024-25, how to go in for NEDO saving schemes have to be tapped, and practically we have to develop this saving culture. Let me tell you, the domestic saving rate of China is always 10% higher to us. That is why none of our multinational companies are choosing us in place of China. China people are having their own saving rate, and this needs to be researched by the people, that how the domestic saving rate can be enhanced. NEDO investment climate is required to be created, whether to go in for banking, NEDO banking, or to go in for that mutual funds for investment. All this will lead to NEDO wealth, NEDO health, and NEDO happiness, which needs to be understood in right perspective for implementing the national education policy. Let me tell you, my dear friends, we must maintain smile on our faces, maybe plastic. Sometimes we don't feel like laughing, but we have to smile in the classroom. With a plastic smile, I call it, with playful personality and develop charismatic style depicting knowledge and wisdom with MBE, management by exceptionals. This is a term which I created when I was teaching MBE course in Kurukshetra University. MBE, management by exceptionals. But today I call it street smart person who is able to control mind, taking care of body, and understanding environment around us. NEDO education of Gita-based NEDonomics as a common sense approach is a necessary and sufficient condition for becoming global citizen. To compete with the foreign universities, we need to accept the challenge with spiritual training of teachers based on sermons from Gita and Anugita for enlightened global citizenship in English, if not English language. Let me tell you, If we go in for accepting mandate of many regional languages, we will not be able to compete. Until or unless we become global citizens, we cannot become global leader. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam or becoming Vishwa Guru is a distant dream. That calls for basically spiritual input to be adopted, as well as the communication skills required to be developed among our students, because the maximum job opportunities today are available in marketing, and that calls for communication skills. NEDO research for policy implication oriented research, not only t-value significance and 95% level of significance with many disconnection between socio-economic global issues. To become confident household in Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, we must adopt Nedonomics for the multiplier effect of our collective commitment. To think beyond barriers for global family, NEDO education for converting careless and careless to careful and useless to useful citizens. And for that, we need to become street smart and simple to achieve anything within reach. And that is what I wanted to talk to you this afternoon. I'm keeping some time for having healthy discussion on the issues which I have raised before you for academic leadership, for NEDO governance in institutional management of the education system. Thank you very much, Shefali, for giving me the opportunity.
बहुत धन्यवाद सर. वेरी एनरिचिंग एंड वेरी एनलाइटनिंग सेशन सर, एज यूजुअल. हम जब जितनी बार भी आपको सुनते हैं उतनी बार बहुत कुछ नया सीखने को मिलता है. हमारे साथ और भी कुछ लोग बाहर से भी जुड़े हैं. शायद डॉक्टर प्रभा जी भी यहाँ आई हैं.
यस मैम
जी.
माय बर्थ प्लेस इज जबलपुर मैम.
अच्छा, ओके ओके.
मेरा सारा एजुकेशन आरडीबीवी जबलपुर से है.
जी, ओके. तो सर, हम आपका सभी प्रतिभागियों की ओर से, अपनी ओर से, मानव संसाधन विकास केंद्र की ओर से, इस मालवीय मिशन केंद्र की ओर से, सबकी ओर से आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करना चाहती हूँ कि आपने हमें ये वैल्यूएबल समय दिया. अपने एक्सपीरियंसेस और अपनी थॉट प्रोसेस से आपने जो इस टीचिंग और लर्निंग के जो फेज में, इस पूरी जर्नी में आपने अपने 50 सालों की, जो तकरीबन 44 साल की, जो आपकी 45 साल की जर्नी है, उसका निचोड़ हमें दिया है सर. इसके लिए मैं आपका बहुत बहुत दिल से धन्यवाद देती हूँ सर.
कल शेफाली एक सरदार जी एक महिला का इंटरव्यू कर रहा था और उससे ये सवाल पूछ रहा था कि 50 साल पहले आप कितने साल की थी. कहता ये बहुत हेल्दी स्टाइल में पूछ रहा हूँ मैं आपसे. और उसने
क्या है आपकी,
कहता दिस मींस यू आर गोइंग टू बी 70.
नहीं सर, हम पूछेंगे.
थैंक यू सर. आपकी वजह से आज आपका मैं लेक्चर सुन पाई. एक्सीलेंट प्रेजेंटेशन सर. मैं मुझको सर ने लिंक शेयर की थी.
जी, हमें भी बहुत अच्छा लगा कि आप जुड़े हैं.
यस मैम. सर को सुनना था ना मुझको. मैं सर रास्ते में थी. 4 बजे कॉलेज से, 3 बजे कॉलेज से निकलती हूँ.
अच्छा. बाद में बात करेंगे जी आपसे.
दोबारा कनेक्ट किया तो कोई आवाज नहीं आ रही. मैम ने भी कुछ किया, मैं आपको बोल तो ओके मैम.
हरदीप सिंह नारवाल कुछ पूछ रहे हैं.
जी, हरदीप जी, आप कुछ कहना चाह रहे हैं?
नो सर, थैंक यू सर.
आपका धन्यवाद देना चाह रहे हैं सर.
एटलीस्ट इनको ये अपनी कैमरा खोल करके इंट्रोडक्शन तो करा दें. और अगर क्वेश्चन नहीं कोई पूछना, कम से कम पता तो लगे कहाँ से लोग आए हैं. तमन्ना जी बैठी हैं, क्या कह रही हैं तमन्ना जी? कहिए, इनको इंट्रोड्यूस करेंगे.
तमन्ना जी.
Yes, sir. My name is Dr. Tamanna Tail from Bhiwani Adarsh Mahila Mahavidyalaya.
Wonderful.
I belongs to Computer Science Department.
Good, very good.
ये प्रभा जी, आप भी
ये साइबर क्राइम को रोकने के लिए कुछ प्रयत्न करें. टीचिंग में भी होने लगे हैं. टेररिज्म हो रहा है बड़े जोर शोर से.
Yes,
we have
sir.
to stop that. We have to work on that.
Yes, sir.
Chat GPT का मिसयूज हो रहा है.
चैट जीपीटी ने तो सर पूरे अमेरिका के अंदर एक कंटेंट राइटर्स की वो स्ट्राइक करवा दी, सभी राइटर्स की, सभी इन सारे ये तो प्रोटेस्ट करने लग गए थे। बट एनी हाउ सर, मुझे तो ऐसा लगता है एआई इसका इस्तेमाल किस तरह से करना है ये चीजें हमें सीखनी पड़ जाएंगी, पर अदरवाइज एआई को हम रूल आउट नहीं कर पाएंगे।
नहीं, रूल आउट तो नहीं कर पाएंगे, मैंने बताया ना, लेकिन वो मंकी माइंड जो हमारा शरारती लोग हैं उनको एथिक्स तो बतानी पड़ेगी ना। स्टॉप डूइंग इट। अब जैसे कल मैंने बताया ना आपको 4 दिन पहले